Hello and welcome to At the Redline podcast. My name is Alec Gonzalez. I'm a life coach. Love to work with salespeople, pastors, and ministry leaders, but especially leaning into the sales force these days. If you know anyone in sales, would love to have them on the podcast. Talk to them a little bit about coaching. I have with me Nick Jarvis, Mutual of Omaha. Love the T-shirt.
Thank you.
Before we get into too much about work and sales and what you do, I always like to start at the beginning. What was childhood life like? Where were you born and raised? Family of origin, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was born and raised Southern California in San Diego, which I live in Idaho, so it's not really a good thing to talk about. When
You
I,
can,
that
talk,
I'm from,
you can talk about it.
yeah, this is a safe space for that.
Yeah, safe space. Good.
But I am originally from San Diego. My family moved there ages ago when my grandpa was stationed in Fresno. I can't remember the town name. It's escaping me. My family's gonna kill me for that. But they moved to. He married my grandmother in Italy. She's from Naples, and there's my dad and my uncle in Taiwan, and then they ended up getting stationed in the Central Valley in California, and then eventually my grandpa got stationed in San Diego, so Coronado Island, and I spent my whole life there. I grew up there. I went to Christian school there, so I've never been to public school. I've always been to private school.
Yeah.
Always private Christian education.
Yeah.
I went to Christian high school in El Cajon, California.
Yeah.
I went through their elementary schools there, which is on Amherst. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. But I went through their whole program. Grew up there, and then I ended up going to college to GCU. I went to Grand Canyon University.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, great. I had a wonderful experience there. I got my undergrad and my postgrad there.
Uh-huh.
My undergrad was finance and economics with a minor in management, and I got my MBA as well shortly afterwards.
Good
I did both of those in 5 years.
Nice.
So that was a lot of work. I did night school for the MBA. So I was working and also doing night school and doing online school for that. And that's kind of when I started my first real job in the real world. I worked for Goodman Manufacturing. That was an HVAC company there for my first job out of school. And then eventually when COVID happened, I actually, right before COVID happened, I ended up moving back home because I was dating my now wife at the time, and she was going to UC Irvine. So my dad helped me get a job at North Island, so working for the Navy. So at first I was a contractor, and then they ended up putting me on as a full-time civilian. I was a data analyst for them for, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I started with Tionic Native Corporation, which is basically like a contractor for the Navy. At the time it was the Department of Defense, and then I ended up going to full-time Navy, working for them directly. And then my wife graduated college, and then we kind of decided, where the heck are we going to go? So her family started a real estate company in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh, nice.
And I said, let's go. Because, her and I got together, and she was just kind of wondering what we wanted to do. And like, we kind of sat down, and we figured that we wanted to move to Idaho instead. Because I didn't want to stay in California. Especially after going to Arizona and then going back to California. I definitely want to get back out of California again. Idaho was not on my radar at all.
Yeah.
Knew nothing about Coeur d'Alene. I didn't even know it existed. And then I started looking into it, and I was like, yeah, we should probably do that. So she moved up there, got a job, and then I followed her up there working for a private aviation company. And then after that, I ended up joining Mutual of Omaha just because of some volatility in the tech industry, and now I'm here.
Nice.
And now I'm in Washington right now.
Yeah.
So
you live in Washington?
No. We live in Coeur d'Alene. I'm just in Washington right now for this podcast now.
Right. So your family of origin, talk a little bit more about that. Siblings, mom and dad.
Yeah.
What was their childhood life like?
Yeah, so my dad worked for the Navy for 35 years. He just recently retired. My brother, I have a brother, and I have 2 half-sisters. Okay. So my 2 half-sisters are Michelle and Melinda. My brother's name's Nathan. Nathan lives in Phoenix right now. He works for, oh my gosh, he would also kill me for this, but he works for the utility company down there. But he's an electrical infrastructure designer.
Okay.
That's like his job. He's down there with his wife Julia and his 2 kids, Van and Parker. And then my sister Michelle lives in Flagstaff, and my sister Melinda lives in like Vegas, and I think she also has some other property somewhere else.
Oh, nice.
but my parents were divorced when I was 12.
Uh-huh.
So my mom lives in Pennsylvania, and my dad and my stepmom live in San Diego still. So they live in
Yeah.
Alpine
Okay.
specifically.
Cool.
But yeah, my early life, I played baseball. I was a
Oh.
big baseball
Yeah.
guy.
Did you play baseball at college?
No,
Okay.
no, I wasn't good enough for
All right.
that.
Nice.
So I played baseball my whole young life. I still love baseball to this day. I don't play it obviously anymore.
Yeah.
I'm more of a competitive shooter now. So I do USPSA. I do long range competitions. I'm really into that,
Nice.
which is obviously why Idaho's a great place to be for that.
Idaho is a great place,
It is,
man. It is
yeah.
so good. I remember during the COVID era, we would go to Idaho just to feel the feeling of freedom. I'm not kidding you. It was
Oh yeah.
ridiculous. It was
Oh yeah.
so bizarre. And then we go to Seattle, and I felt like I was in a straitjacket walking around with people.
Oh,
It was
California's the same way.
it was just so bizarre. But Idaho and Coeur d'Alene was always this like, hey, come on over. We're
Yeah.
having a party. Let's shoot pool and drink beer at the pub. You know, it was just
It's still
crazy.
like that actually
Yeah.
right now.
Well, of course, yeah. Okay, Arc of Faith. Usually, when I get someone in here that's a Jesus follower,
Mhm.
we like to talk about sort of the Arc of Faith
Mhm.
and what that was like for you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So I accepted Jesus into my heart when I was 5.
Nice.
So during Sunday school. So I was so our church for Christian Unified Schools was Pastor David Jeremiah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I grew up listening to him. And
Wow.
I remember when I was a kid, I always liked going to a big boy church.
Ah.
I just did not like going to like the vacation Bible school or the kids stuff. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But going throughout my life, I went to Christian high school, right? And we did chapel every week. I had Bible class.
Yeah.
We had an apologetics class that was my favorite class. That to this day, the stuff I learned in that class still helps me to this day.
Oh,
And
good.
learning how to
Of course.
defend your faith
Yeah.
and debate, and
Nice.
just in general, that education was such a huge thing for me. I mean, my parents sacrificed a lot for my brother and I to go to that specific school system. But with that being said, back to Faith Arc. Accepted Jesus when I was 5. I have been a Jesus follower ever since.
Nice.
I would say, getting older, when I got to college, I was so sick of the chapel and everything. I kind of stopped going. I was like, I'm done. I kind of need to take a break for a little bit. Like, I'm just like, you end up going so often that you kind of start hearing the same regurgitated stuff
Mm.
over and over and over again. And then you kind of get to the point where like, I know what you're going to say. I know the point you're making. So it
Yeah.
seemed like it never really like hit home for me.
Yeah.
Until I got married.
Yeah.
That was another huge milestone for me. So meeting my wife, and getting married and everything kind of really, it made it a lot more serious to me.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it my personal revival.
Yeah.
Because now we were getting married and I'm the spiritual head of the family, right?
Right.
I have to lead my family in a godly way.
Yeah.
And having to do that is important. And
Yeah.
being able to have the right tools and the right information, armed with the right information, is
Yeah.
really important, especially in my opinion, this current world we live in.
Yeah.
And the Christianity is attacked all the time.
Yeah.
And being able to defend your faith logically is so important these days.
Yeah.
But I think that was I guess you could, I don't like to call it turning over a leaf, but that was more of like my revival.
Yeah.
That was like, hey, I need to take this way more seriously than I have. Because, when you're a kid and you go to Christian school your whole life, I've never been to public school, it gets just pounded into your head.
Yeah.
Like this is what it is. And I've probably read the Bible probably like 4 or 5 times over, just from Bible class and, having to memorize Bible verses every week and
Yeah.
all this stuff, right? So I would say, as far as the biblical knowledge level, I think, I'm no expert. I don't want to say I'm an expert, but I do know a lot more than the average bear as
Yeah.
far as like,
That's
basic
cool.
basic understanding of the Bible and, theology. I would consider myself a Baptist. I'm a Protestant. So that is kind of where I'm at now, is trying to build my family up and lead my family in a godly way. And just being able to, because we're expecting our first daughter in September.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so that's another whole thing, is that now it's gotten even more serious, right? It's like, okay, now we're having our first child. How are we gonna handle this, right? Because in my opinion, we were talking about like schooling and everything, because private school is expensive,
Yeah.
right? It's a lot of money. And to me, I think private school for our child is really important when they're younger.
Yeah.
and maybe a little less support when they're older if they have a really good foundation and they have a good home life and a good background of the faith at home.
Yeah.
Then I think you could probably send them to public school later on and probably be okay. It just depends on like sports. There's a lot of ifs and variables to it, but without getting too off the rails, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Nice. I have this question in my mind, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to think of whether I should ask you or not.
Mhm.
It's off the script. It's not
That's fine.
anywhere.
That's okay.
Have you ever thought about going into ministry, preaching, pastoring, evangelist?
No, I have not. No, never really thought about it. Honestly, it's I don't know if that is something that I would be super interested in. Um, Mainly because I think my calling is to be a father and a family figure. I think that's kind of, and again, there's like there's a family of the church and
That's
everything
what
like that.
pastors do, right?
Yeah, it is what pastors do. I guess no one's really ever asked me that question before. Um, it hasn't really ever been on my radar. I've always just wanted to be a good father
Hmm.
and to build a good family and just live my life as an example of what it looks like to be a godly family and make a good example. Um,
It's pretty much what pastors do.
yeah, which now that I'm talking about it now, I can see where the question is going.
Well, here's the thing, Nick. You've
Mhm,
got a really good voice.
mhm.
Seriously, a really good, deep, awesome voice.
Thank
Most of
you.
the pastors that I know
Mhm,
that are really talented,
mhm,
that when they preach,
mhm,
they can hold they start with a lot of, passion
mhm,
and obviously calling. Like
mhm,
that's like, the foundation of their ministry is, the calling that God has put at them.
mhm,
Often at a young age, but sometimes not so young.
mhm,
Then a real hunger and just like the Bible is a special kind of special to them.
mhm,
A lot of Christians love the Bible and a lot of
mhm,
Christians read the Bible,
mhm,
but most pastors and preachers and teachers, they have a special love for it that's
mhm.
unique to them that a lot of Christians, they look at them like, you read the Bible that much? And like, you study the Bible? Like, yeah, it's really fun for me. Like, they love it.
Yeah,
And it becomes almost obsessive.
right.
And then, some of the values that you've talked about already are usually pretty important to pastors. So,
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm throwing it out there. Okay,
Yeah, no
moving
worries.
on. Next question.
Mhm,
I always like to ask about trouble and difficulty. In James
mhm,
1, it says, count it all joy when you endure difficulty and trouble because it
mhm,
leads to some really amazing stuff. And
mhm,
what I found is that most people have encountered hardship,
mhm,
and upon reflection, when they look back on it, they realize, man, that did something really amazing in them and with them and through them, that if they had the opportunity, they wouldn't necessarily change it. And
mhm.
I'm curious if you have a story of how trouble and difficulty has caused you to grow and become better, whether
Yeah,
it's at your current job or as a man or just in your faith or whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just
yeah,
interested in
yeah,
how trouble shapes us to be
yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely. I think my current career is really relevant to that. You know, I grew up in a family that has, they work for the government, right? And they work normal salary jobs, and having my family's outlook on a good steady career is something that pays you regularly and is like, just very normal, right? Like working corporate job and everything. Well, my wife's family is different than that. They're the complete opposite. They prefer the freedom and they prefer the risk, right? So for me, I was a very risk adverse individual. So I was like, hey, I am the leader of the family. I'm the spiritual leader. I need to be very steady, right? My wife can go to be a realtor and stuff, but I need to be the steady rock, right? Well, my whole journey through the tech world and recently, the reason I got into this career, there was a lot of turmoil and I got basically caught up in that with a lot of the AI replacement and things like that. And it really pushed me back to the drawing board, and it caused, it was a lot of trouble for our family as far as financially trying to figure out how are we going to make this work. Like, this is crazy. I never expected any of that to happen. I thought I was going to retire doing what I was doing, right? I didn't particularly love it. I can be honest about that. It wasn't necessarily the career for me, but I was good at it. And it was just something that I'd always kind of just like push it down. Like, I was like, this is what I need to do, right? And the one thing that really brought me to this decision to go and start this new career in sales, right? Which, as you know, sales can be ups and downs and sideways and very rocky, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that the Lord really put on my heart was you need to trust me more than you trust yourself.
Yeah.
And that was the conclusion that really brought me to starting this new career. And that was the hardship that brought me to do this was I need to trust the Lord, that the Lord's going to provide
Yeah.
and that he will bring me people that I can help.
Yeah.
Right. And I can say without any uncertainty that has definitely happened. And
Yeah.
this is just my first year, right?
Yeah.
He has blessed our family immensely just from this career path change. And this was from me surrendering and saying, I just need tell me what to do. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was my wife too, saying like, hey, like this, you would be really good at this. You should do this.
Yeah.
Right. And her and I sat down, prayed about it for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
Because to me, this is when I was unemployed for 4 months, right?
Yeah.
And that's a long time to be unemployed. And we were just figuring it out. And I think, my wife basically, we sat down, she's like, I think we need to trust the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think she's like, you need to do something that you love. And you need to do something that allows you to put the trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
Right. And I know it sounds very trivial, but it's like, when you work a normal job, it's very regular. You get a paycheck. You work your week. You have the weekends. Then you get your paycheck, right? And it's very regular. Well, now it's not as regular,
Yeah.
right? And you have to manage a lot of it on your own. And there's a lot of faith
Yeah.
in that. And that has completely transformed the way we think about how to provide for a family, especially for me, right? Now I get a lot more freedom, but I also have a lot more risk. But with a lot of trust in the Lord, I know everything's going to work out. And I think that hardship of economic and career uncertainty is what pushed us to have more faith in the Lord now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great answer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The other thing I always like to talk about is I'm a coach, obviously. I love to work with people that are in sales, help them increase their sales volume, their closing ratio, the number of referrals that they're getting, all these things. Not everybody's had a life coach that works with them, or a spiritual director that works with them about their relationship with Jesus. But most of us have had people in our lives that have noticed and paid attention and sort of like, hey, what's going on in your life? I've noticed you. Maybe they're a little further on. Maybe they're peers. But I wonder if you could talk about someone that's had an influential, part in your life.
Well, there's been a lot, but I think the biggest one is actually my wife. I know I'm bringing up her a lot right now, and she's going to watch this later and be like, okay, what are you trying to get out of this right now?
Nice.
But it is very true. She has been such a huge motivator for me. Mainly because, this goes back to how our families are inherently a little different in how they view success and how they view wealth, right? And my wife was a big influence on me to like make some changes. Maybe not like make a huge change, but maybe try something a little different, right? She's probably the biggest influence on my life I could possibly ever have.
Yeah.
Positive influence,
sure.
positive.
For sure.
It's positive, babe. I promise.
Yeah.
Positive influence, of course.
Good.
That's been on my life. Obviously, like my dad and my mom, obviously.
Yeah.
They raised me. I mean, I know what I know about fixing stuff and being a man from my dad. My father-in-law is a very big influence in my life as well. He is as far as like my new career, he's been a huge influence on that. He's had a lot of good tips and tricks about, how to navigate the sales world, how to be successful in the sales world. He's also a huge influence, but it's really just mostly my family. It's my family that's been my biggest influence.
All right, let's talk about your business. Who's a perfect client? What's the pain that you resolve?
Yeah, so I would say that my ideal client, I work with a lot of veterans. So working in the Navy, I had a lot of similar benefits to what a lot of individuals in the military had. Not everything, but most of it. Things like, the TSP and things like that. So I do understand how all of that works. I do also help veterans kind of look for a new job. And by that, I want to temper that By that I mean I can point you in the right direction, because a lot of times a lot of veterans just struggle with, well, my MOS was supply. What exactly am I going to do in the civilian world that relates to ammunition supply, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to kind of say, hey, based on your MOS, I can kind of tell you which job titles to look for,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of how to give yourself some structure and a future outside of the military, right? I can kind of show you what the real world looks like, and I can give you kind of a little preview and a little window into what the real world can look like for you. And it's not all bad. It's not all negative things, right? Because a lot of times guys come out of the military, you have the recruiters come in and they'll be like, hey, you sure you want to pay for everything when you're out? And they'll try to keep them, right? I'm here to say you don't need to do that, right? So I work with a lot of veterans. I'm in the life and health insurance space, so I use products like that to help leverage what they already have in order to maximize protection for their family in the future. So a lot of that obviously comes into play as well. But I also work with a lot of first-time homebuyers, young families who are just getting started in the world, looking for some financial protection. Specifically life insurance is a very good way to do that. Everyone talks about mortgage protection. Life insurance is the ultimate mortgage protection, in that if you are a married couple, you're both working. If you were to lose a huge portion of your income, let's say the husband's the one bringing in the most money, if something happened to your husband right now, how would you keep your household moving, right? How would you pay your mortgage? How would you take care of your kids? Life insurance inherently solves that problem. Right. And usually, especially if you're young, for a very low cost in comparison to a lot of other things that you'll pay for in your whole life. Right. Yeah. That is another ideal client. As far as going a little bigger, I also do a lot of work building up life insurance as a wealth fund as well. I do enjoy that type of work. It is my favorite, like family offices. I can help family offices set something up like that, kind of like a Rockefeller type setup. The rules have changed since the Rockefellers were prominent and around, but I do help a lot. I do help set that up. I can also kind of, as far as a client that would be ideal, small business owners, key man insurance. I do a lot of that as well. I work with a lot with small business owners. They're my favorite people to talk to. Nice. In fact, that's by far my favorite. I love speaking with business owners about all of this stuff, because a lot of these financial products that are available are supremely beneficial to somebody in small business, right? Especially for someone who has a legacy mindset, who wants to preserve their legacy for their future generations, for their kids, who maybe they don't have any kids, maybe they just want to preserve their company for the future. That's their baby. I'm able to help them with that. So those are mainly my ideal clients. I can work with anybody, but if it's anybody in those sectors, those are my people. Those are the people I love to talk to.
What's the best way to get a hold of you? I can put your phone number right here, or email, or website, whatever, LinkedIn.
Yeah, so my phone number is 208-755-9288.
Nice.
My email is nick.jarvis@mutualofomaha.com.
Okay.
Both of those ways are a great way to get a hold of me. Cool. I would honestly just give me a call. I love speaking with somebody. You can email me if you want, but I love speaking with people on the phone.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. Yeah. Again, my name's Alec, coaching the Redline. Mm-hmm. If you know anyone in sales, I'd love to have a conversation. Thanks. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.